I never imagined that walking into my sister's promotion party would feel like stepping onto a stage one didn't belong on. The ballroom shimmered with crystal chandeliers and white roses, their petals pristine against the mahogany tables. An orchestra's soft strains floated through the air, tickling my ears like distant laughter. People chatted animatedly, champagne glasses clinking. Underneath the celebration's glow, I felt the familiar twinge of being an outsider in my own family. Like I was a ghost haunting their success. My name is Vivienne Callahan, and until that evening, my family thought I was just their quiet, unassuming sister, the one who had wandered away to build a life of her own. But I was more than that. I was the owner of Callahan Industries, their family legacy. Yet nobody knew. And as the night commenced, I felt the weight of their indifference press down on me harder than any secret could alone. The invitations had been clear. Join us to celebrate Margot's promotion to Chief Creative Officer at Callahan Industries. A high honor, yes. My sister had worked hard, perhaps harder than I ever had. Margot, with her flaming auburn hair and unstoppable ambition, had always been the golden child. Our parents doted on her, whispered her praises to CEOs and board members, decorated their social media posts with her smiling face. But me? I was the quiet observer, the one who slipped through life's cracks. That afternoon, I slipped on my tailored midnight blue dress, the one that clung in all the right places, a gentle reminder that I, too, could command attention if I wanted to. I applied a thin slash of scarlet lipstick and let my hair tumbling in soft waves. The reflection that gazed back at me was a woman transformed, poised, powerful, yet aching in ways nobody could see. I arrived just as Margot was giving her speech, the microphone capturing her every confident inflection. And I'm honored to lead our creative team into bold new horizons, she declared, arms raised, as guests erupted in applause. I slipped to the back of the room, pulling my shoulders back, forcing myself to share in their celebratory cheer. I sipped my champagne quietly, scanning faces, colleagues, distant relatives, board members I recognized as suits and names from old press releases. But none of them belonged to me. Mom and Dad drifted by, entwined like a vignette of perfection. They were impeccably dressed, Dad in his tailored gray suit, Mom in a cream lace gown. Their eyes sparkled with pride, but not for me. Margot approached, her eyes alight, and threw herself into their arms. I watched as they cooed over her achievement. I raised my glass in a solitary toast to her success, my own pulse echoing in my ears. "Vivi!" Margot cried, spinning around to face me. She enveloped me in a hug so tight it nearly crushed the breath from my lungs. "I'm so glad you're here. Tonight means everything to me." I smiled, and for a moment her warmth thawed something inside me. "I wouldn't miss it for the world," I lied, and she beamed. In truth, I would have missed it, because tonight's date, July 10th, was my birthday, 30 years old. But not one single happy birthday had crossed a single pair of lips in this gilded room. No candles, no cake, no song. Over the years, I had grown accustomed to their forgetfulness. Birthday after birthday, I'd mastered the art of celebrating alone. But tonight, when the sting felt sharper than usual, I couldn't ignore it. A waiter passed with trays of smoked salmon canapés. I took one and bit into it, tasting salt and dill, flavors that hurt my tongue. I moved toward the balcony doors, needing the cool night air to anchor me. Outside, a breeze drifted in from the grounds, carrying the scent of summer roses and distant thunder. The sky was a canvas of navy and violet, fragmented by lightning in the distance. I closed my eyes against the tears I refused to shed. I had built my life on control of my emotions, my destiny, my very identity. I had done it without their support, without their recognition. Years ago, I had quietly purchased the majority shares of Callahan Industries during a buyback program no one thought to mention to me. I had navigated corporate politics with cold precision, assembling alliances behind the scenes. And today, I owned the very company that paid for Margot's lavish celebration. I opened my eyes to see Jonathan Price, the chief financial officer, leaning against the balustrade. His suit was rumpled, his tie loose. His usually immaculate hair fell in messy strands. He looked as worn out as I felt. "Rough night?" I asked, stepping onto the balcony. He started and blinked at me. "Vivienne? What? What are you doing here?" "I live here," I said quietly, and Jonathan's eyes widened in dawning comprehension. Behind him, the glass doors framed the radiant scene inside Margot's world. Jonathan swallowed. I didn't know you were coming." I looked at him steadily. "You wouldn't be the first." He ran a hand through his hair. "Why now?" "Why not?" I replied, and turned away, inhaling the night air again. My pulse was slowing, but my mind raced. Even Jonathan, a man who'd worked with our family for years, had no clue I was in the room. "Do you have a moment?" he asked, tentatively stepping closer. I glanced at him. "I've got plenty." I paused. "Tell me, Jonathan, how much do you know about tonight's special deal?" His brow furrowed. "Which one?" I felt that familiar spark of anticipation flare in my chest. This was it. The moment when the truth would ripple through the night. But before Jonathan could answer, a voice called from the hallway behind us. "Jonathan! There you are. We need those final figures for the press release." He tightened his tie and stole one more look at me. "You're not supposed to be here." I let out a soft laugh. "I know." He hesitated, caught between duty and something else. "Recognition, maybe?" Then he straightened, smoothing his jacket. "I should go." I watched him retreat, the door clicking shut behind him. The orchestra's swell carried through the glass now. Triumphant, oblivious. I felt more alone than ever. I took a step back inside. The crowd parted like a tide, and Margot spotted me. Her face lit up. "Vivienne, come here. Come celebrate with us." I forced a smile and walked toward her. The applause hit me like a wave, and in that moment, I had to decide. Would I let them continue in ignorance, or would I seize this night and reveal what I truly held in my hands? I stopped, mid-step, my heart pounding. The chandeliers glittered overhead as all eyes turned to me. The forgotten sister. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're from. If this story moves you, please subscribe. Tomorrow, I have a special story for you. I stood there, caught in the echo of Margot's celebration as the orchestra's crescendo swelled and champagne fizzed in crystal flutes. My fingers tingled from the grip of my empty glass, knuckles whitening as I drew in a slow breath. The smile I'd stitched onto my lips began to crack. My heart thudded like a drum in my throat, each beat urging me to speak. To say something that would shatter this perfect little bubble they'd built around themselves. But I didn't. Not yet. Margot was laughing with Dad now, looping her arm through his like a child who'd just won a prize. Mom brushed a loose strand of Margot's hair behind her ear, her eyes misty with pride. For a moment, I was 9 years old again, standing in the hallway with a homemade birthday card in my hands, waiting for them to notice me while they fussed over Margot's dance recital. Nothing changes. Not really. Jonathan caught my eye from across the room. He stood near the bar, a fresh drink in hand. His tie finally knotted properly. He looked like he wanted to say something, but his gaze flicked nervously between me and my parents, as if weighing the cost of getting involved. I raised my chin, silently daring him to cross the room. He didn't. I turned back to Margot, who was still basking in the glow of everyone's praise. She deserved it, I told myself. She'd clawed her way up the ranks, made the right friends, kissed the right rings. She didn't know she was a pawn in a game she didn't even realize she was playing, the same game I'd mastered years ago, hidden in plain sight. "Vivienne, darling." Mom's voice cut through my thoughts. She reached for my arm, her bracelet jangling. "Isn't this just wonderful? Your sister is going to do amazing things for the company." I raised an eyebrow. For the company, or for herself? Mom blinked, confused. "What do you mean? It's the same thing, isn't it?" I smiled tightly. Of course, Dad leaned in. We've been thinking, Vivienne, maybe you should come work in the office again. Join Margot's team. She could use someone she trusts. He beamed, proud of the idea. You've always been so good with people. I laughed, a sound sharper than I intended. Is that what you think I'm good at? Dad's smile faltered. Well, it's your strength, isn't it? You're personable. I looked at Margot, who was watching me now, an uneasy curiosity flickering across her face. You want me to come work for my little sister? Margot placed a hand on my arm, squeezing just a bit too hard. It would be fun. We could spend more time together, like when we were kids. Like when we were kids, I repeated, my voice colder than the champagne in my veins. Right. A hush fell over our little circle as they all looked at me. My parents, Margot, even Jonathan, who'd edged closer now, hovering like a ghost at the fringe. I saw the question forming in Margot's mind. What is wrong with her? I set my empty glass on the nearest table, its sharp clink loud in the silence. You know what? I think that's a wonderful idea. Let's do it. I'll come back. Dad clapped me on the back like I'd just agreed to adopt a stray dog. That's my girl. Jonathan flinched. His eyes darted between us, his mouth opening and closing like a man trying to catch his breath underwater. I turned my gaze on him and gave him the smallest shake of my head. Not yet. A waiter appeared with another tray of drinks. I grabbed one, something strong, burning my throat on the way down. I needed the fire, needed it to keep the truth from spilling out too soon. ... Margot leaned in, her voice low. I'm really glad you're here, Vivi, really. I smiled at her, and for a moment I remembered the two of us as girls, tangled in blankets on a stormy night, telling each other secrets that felt too big for our small bedrooms. But that was a lifetime ago. Me too, Margot, me too. ... The rest of the night blurred into a soft smear of music and polite laughter. I let my parents parade me around like a trophy they'd just rediscovered. The prodigal daughter returned. Every handshake, every false smile, every compliment about Margot's bright future felt like a hook digging into my skin. When the party finally thinned out, I slipped away to the hallway near the kitchens, my heels tapping against the marble floor. The shadows were comforting. Quiet, honest. Jonathan found me there, his eyes wide and frantic. Vivienne, he hissed, glancing over his shoulder. What the hell was that? I leaned against the wall, crossing my arms. What do you think it was? He ran a hand through his hair. You can't just drop back into the company like that. I tilted my head. Why not? I own it. He flinched like I'd struck him. They don't know. Of course they don't. I pushed off the wall, stepping closer. That's the point. You're playing with fire, Vivienne. I leaned in so close our noses almost touched. Jonathan, darling, I am the fire. He sucked in a breath, eyes darting to my lips before he caught himself. This isn't a game anymore. They're working on a merger. You know that, right? My blood turned to ice. What merger? He hesitated, voice barely above a whisper. Callahan Industries is weeks away from finalizing a deal that will sell a controlling stake to venture tech. Your parents and Margot, they're all on board. My stomach dropped. Without the board's approval? He scoffed. They think they have it. They think they're the board. They don't realize who really owns the shares. A sharp laugh escaped my throat. They're about to find out. Jonathan grabbed my wrist. Vivienne, please. If you're going to do this, do it carefully. You can't just... Watch me, I whispered, ripping my wrist free. They forgot my birthday. They've forgotten me for years, but they're about to remember exactly who I am. The hallway lights flickered above us, casting shadows that danced across the marble. The storm that had been a distant rumble was now roaring outside, thunder rolling like a promise. I felt alive for the first time in years. I turned on my heel, striding back toward the ballroom. Jonathan's footsteps echoed behind me, a futile warning I had no intention of heeding. Inside, Margot was at the center of the room again, posing for pictures with a glass of champagne. My parents flanked her, beaming like royalty. I stepped onto the stage, my stage, and took the microphone from the MC, who looked startled. "Excuse me," I said, my voice amplified, slicing through the last strains of music. The room fell silent. Every head turned. Margot's eyes widened, a spark of confusion. Then something darker. "Vivienne?" Dad called out. "What are you doing?" I smiled, wide and bright and dangerous. "Just a little announcement. I know we're here to celebrate Margot tonight, and she deserves it. Truly she does. But I think it's time you all knew something else." Jonathan appeared at the edge of the stage, his eyes pleading. I ignored him. "I'm back at Callahan Industries," I said, my voice steady as a blade. "Not as an employee, not as a team member. I'm back as the owner. I own the company, every controlling share, every board vote. It's mine, and I'm not going anywhere." Gasps rippled through the room like a shockwave. Margot's mouth opened, but no words came out. My parents looked like they'd been slapped. I let the silence stretch, the weight of my words settling over them all. Then, I set the microphone down gently, the metallic thud echoing through the ballroom. I stepped down, my heart pounding like a war drum in my chest. The storm outside rattled the windows, wind howling like a wolf at our door. For the first time in my life, they saw me, really saw me, but it was only the beginning. Because I knew my family, and I knew they wouldn't let go of their precious legacy without a fight, and neither would I. Part 2 ends here. Let me know when you're ready for Part 3. I'll have the storm get even worse. The ballroom shattered in a flurry of whispers, sharp inhalations, and the hush of silk gowns brushing past one another as guests drew back like a tide retreating from an unexpected storm. I stood at the center of it all. Vivienne Callahan, the girl who'd grown up in the shadows of this family, now the epicenter of the quake that would topple the walls they'd so carefully built. I saw it on their faces. Disbelief first, then confusion, then the searing glimmer of betrayal. Dad's hand trembled on the back of Mom's chair. Mom pressed her fingertips to her lips like she could hold the words inside. "But Margot, oh, Margot!" Her eyes flashed with something raw and molten beneath her practiced composure. She recovered faster than anyone. She stepped forward, her heels clicking like gunshots across the marble floor. "Vivienne, what is this? Some sick joke?" I tilted my head, savoring the bite of cold air drifting through the open balcony doors behind me. "It's not a joke, Margot. It's the truth." Her laugh was brittle, a porcelain cup dropped on concrete. "You own the company? That's not possible. You've been gone for years. You've been, what? Traveling? Hiding out?" "Building," I said softly. "Learning, waiting." Dad found his voice then, his baritone cracking like old paint. "Vivienne, you don't understand how these things work. You can't just waltz in here and what?" I snapped, my voice rising above the string quartet's tentative chords, which faltered and died altogether. "Remind you who actually controls your precious legacy?" Jonathan hovered at the edge of the scene like a ghost, his phone pressed to his ear. I knew he was already making calls, damage control unfolding in real time. It didn't matter. This was happening. Mom stepped toward me, her eyes glossy with unshed tears. "Darling, please, this isn't the time or place." "Isn't it?" I asked, my voice cutting through the murmurs. "You all forgot what today was. You forgot me. For years. Well, here I am." Margot's lip curled. "You really think anyone's going to let you do this? You think the board will stand behind you?" "They already have," I said. "For years they've been voting my way. They just didn't know it was me." The silence that fell then was so heavy, it felt like the air itself might collapse. I felt the eyes of every guest burning holes into my skin, each one a witness to the spectacle they'd never forget. A sudden roll of thunder cracked the sky open. Rain began to lash against the tall windows, the storm finally arriving in full. It was fitting, the perfect, violent punctuation to the moment I'd waited my whole life for. Margot's fists clenched at her sides. "I've given everything to this company. Everything, Vivienne. I earned my place." I stepped closer until we were nearly nose to nose. And I took mine. The room seemed to pulse with the weight of the storm. Lightning flashed, illuminating the marble floor like a stage. Jonathan reappeared at my side, his face pale. "The press is already calling," he whispered. "You have to get ahead of this." "Good," I said, never taking my eyes off Margot. "Let them. .. The party ended in shambles. Guests slipped out through side doors, their gowns hiked above the rising water that pooled on the steps. I stood at the window and watched them scatter, my reflection fractured by the rivulets of rain. Jonathan handed me a fresh glass of bourbon. "You've made a mess, Vivienne." "I know," I said, taking a sip. The burn felt righteous. He hesitated, his voice softer. "Are you sure about this? There's no going back now." I turned to him. "Jonathan, I've never been more sure of anything." From the corner of my eye, I saw Margot pacing near the empty dessert table. Her phone was pressed to her ear, her voice a muffled blade behind the glass. I knew she was trying to salvage it, spinning her story, reminding everyone of her value. But it wouldn't be enough. Mom approached me, her face drawn and pale. "Vivienne, you've humiliated your sister in front of everyone. Do you understand what you've done?" "Yes," I said. "I've told the truth." "Your father—" "We'll have to accept it," I interrupted. "Or not. It doesn't matter." Mom's eyes filled with tears. "You're my daughter. Both of you are. Can't we fix this?" I softened, just for a heartbeat. "That's up to you." She opened her mouth, then closed it. She didn't have the words. Margot slammed her phone onto the table and stormed over. "You think you're so clever, Vivienne. You think you've won. But you have no idea what you're doing." "Try me," I said, meeting her glare with one of my own. She leaned in, her voice low. "VentureTech isn't going to back down. The merger is happening. You can't stop it alone." I smiled. "Who said I'm alone?" Her eyes flicked to Jonathan, who stepped closer, placing a steadying hand on my shoulder. Margot's face went white. "You're with her?" she hissed. "Always have been," Jonathan said calmly. "You just never noticed." The thunder rumbled again, the windows shaking in their frames. I felt the ground shifting beneath our feet, but I stood my ground. I would not be moved. "This isn't over," Margot spat, her breath hot against my cheek. "No," I agreed. "It's just beginning." ... Hours later, I found myself back at my penthouse, the rain pounding against the glass like a heartbeat that wouldn't settle. I sat by the window, legs curled beneath me, my phone buzzing non-stop on the table beside me. Press inquiries, board members, lawyers. Margot. Jonathan sat across from me, tie undone, the sleeves of his shirt rolled to his elbows. He looked exhausted, but there was something like pride in his eyes. "You did it," he said. "Not yet," I replied. "They'll come for me. Margot won't stop until she gets what she thinks she deserves." He reached across the table, covering my hand with his. "Let them come. You're ready." I stared at his hand on mine, the warmth of it seeping into my skin. "Am I?" He squeezed gently. "You are." Lightning split the sky, throwing our shadows across the floor like specters. I knew sleep wouldn't come easy tonight, or any night soon, but I welcomed it. The fight, the fire, the chance to finally be seen. I picked up my phone, scrolling through the endless messages until I found the one I needed. A single line from a trusted contact. "They're meeting tomorrow, noon. VentureTech, be ready." I looked at Jonathan. "It's time." He nodded. Then let's show them who you really are. Outside, the storm howled. Inside, I felt the storm within me rising to meet it. And for the first time, I wasn't afraid. End of part 3. Ready for the next? Just say next when you want the storm to get even wilder. I woke to the low growl of thunder that seemed to rumble straight through the walls of my penthouse. Dawn had barely touched the city skyline. The storm from the night before hadn't relented. If anything, it had gathered more force, hammering rain against the floor-to-ceiling windows in a relentless rhythm that matched the pounding in my head. I pulled myself up from the couch. My hair was tangled, my phone dead where it had slipped from my fingers hours before. Jonathan was still here, asleep in the armchair opposite me, his arms folded over his chest, tie draped like a spent banner across the back of the seat. He looked oddly peaceful, the calm to my storm. For a moment I stood there, watching him. In the dim wash of dawn, I let myself remember every step that brought me here. The lonely years abroad, the boardroom betrayals, the nights I'd spent buried in balance sheets and corporate charters, while Margot shone under every spotlight. I'd built a fortress around myself, brick by careful brick. But last night I tore it down with a single savage truth. Jonathan stirred, his eyes cracking open. He offered me a tired, crooked smile. How long was I out? Long enough, I said, my voice rough. I moved to the kitchen and set the kettle on the stove, listening to the rain drum its warning against the glass. Coffee? Please. He scrubbed a hand over his face and stretched. We have a big day ahead. Yes, I said, pouring the boiling water through the filter. They're meeting at noon. VentureTech wants to push the deal through before the weekend. Jonathan exhaled slowly. They'll expect you to cave, or they'll think they can outmaneuver you. Let them think it, I said. They have no idea how deep I've dug my roots into this company. He looked at me over the rim of his mug. You'll need allies, not just me. I have them, I said. They just don't know it yet. .. By 10 we were suited and ready, standing in the building's underground garage. I watched as our driver, a tall man with a shaved head and eyes like polished steel, opened the door to the sleek black sedan waiting for us. Jonathan glanced at me. You sure you want to do this in person? I want to see their faces, I said, every last one of them. The car slid through the rain-slicked streets like a phantom. As we crossed the river into the financial district, I caught my reflection in the glass. Dark hair pinned back, makeup flawless, eyes hard as marble. Vivienne Callahan. Owner, sister. Betrayer, some would say. Savior, if they were honest. Jonathan's phone buzzed. He read the message, jaw tightening. Margot just arrived. She's brought your parents. And 3 VentureTech execs. Good, I murmured. Let's get all the wolves in the den. The car pulled up in front of the Callahan Industries headquarters, 30 floors of steel and glass and secrets I'd collected like pearls. As I stepped out, the wind ripped through me, cold and cleansing. The rain plastered my coat to my shoulders, but I didn't flinch. Security greeted us with stiff nods, eyes flicking from me to Jonathan and back again. It was the first time in years that I felt the weight of the building pressing down on me, but I stood taller because of it. Inside, the lobby buzzed with tension. Employees stood in little knots, whispering behind hands, pretending to be busy when I passed. The whispers followed me into the private elevator. Jonathan hit the button for the top floor. The doors closed, sealing us in with the storm. .. The boardroom was already full when we arrived. The glass walls offered a panoramic view of the city shrouded in rain, skyscrapers blurred to gray silhouettes. Inside, the mood was all sharp suits and sharper smiles. Margot sat at the head of the table, flanked by our parents. Across from them, 3 VentureTech executives. Polished, predatory. The CEO, Carter Bishop, leaned back in his chair, tapping a Montblanc pen against his notebook with infuriating calm. Margot's eyes flicked up when she saw me. Vivienne, you look well rested. I ignored her. Mr. Bishop, glad you could join us on such short notice. Carter's mouth curved into something that might have been a smile. We were in the neighborhood. I moved to the far end of the table, deliberately taking my place opposite Margot. Jonathan settled beside me, sliding a folder in front of me. I didn't open it yet. Dad cleared his throat. Vivienne, before we begin, can we speak privately? Whatever you have to say it here, I said, voice steady. We're all family, right? Margot bristled. Stop making a mockery of this. You blindsided us last night. I told the truth, I cut in. Something this family has avoided for far too long. Mom reached for me across the table. Vivienne, please. We can fix this. The merger is good for everyone. It's good for you, I said. For Margot. You'd sell our legacy to Venture Tech for a slice of their pie. Carter leaned forward, his smile cool. It's more than a slice, Miss Callahan. It's a future. Synergy, liquidity, expanded global reach, all the usual buzzwords. And who's in control when the ink dries, I asked. Because it won't be us. Margot's nails tapped against her tablet. Vivienne, you're being paranoid. This is how business works. No, Margot, I said, my voice low and lethal. This is how vultures work. Carter's smile froze. Are you implying something? I flipped open the folder Jonathan had prepared. Inside was a single sheet of paper, the terms of the merger, annotated with every hidden clause they thought I wouldn't find. I'm not implying anything. I'm saying it outright. This deal guts Callahan Industries. It turns us into a subsidiary, strips the board of power, locks out dissenting shareholders. Like me. Margot's face went pale. How did you... Do you really think I didn't read every line? I snapped. While you were celebrating your promotion, I was making sure this company couldn't be sold out from under me. Dad's face was a thundercloud. You're making a mistake. No, I said, standing. You did, when you underestimated me. I leaned forward, hands on the polished mahogany. This deal is dead. As majority shareholder, I veto it. And if you push it through without my consent, I'll take it to court. You'll be buried in injunctions and bad press until Venture Tech pulls out. Carter's mask cracked, just a fraction. You don't have the leverage to... I have everything I need, I said, my voice cutting through the storm outside. And if you think I'm bluffing, test me. The room fell silent except for the rain hammering the windows. Margot's eyes met mine, something desperate flickering in her gaze. I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. She whispered, You'll destroy us all. No, I said, straightening. I'll save what's left of us. Jonathan closed the folder with a decisive snap. Meeting adjourned. I turned on my heel and walked out, leaving the silence behind me like an echo in a tomb. ... Back in the elevator, my hands trembled. Jonathan pressed the emergency stop halfway down and turned to me. Vivienne, he said, his voice low. They're going to fight back. Hard. Let them, I breathed. The fear tasted like freedom. Let them come. The city spread out below, drenched in rain, and for the first time, it felt like mine. End of part 4. Tell me next when you want to see Vivienne face her family's backlash head-on. It didn't take long for the knives to come out. The morning after I vetoed the merger, I woke to headlines that painted me as everything from a spoiled socialite to an unstable saboteur. Callahan heiress destroys sister's deal. Vivienne Callahan, corporate menace or family traitor. My phone buzzed on the marble counter, a relentless hum of notifications and half-baked apologies from PR people I hadn't even hired yet. I silenced it, let it vibrate itself off the edge and clatter to the floor. Let them talk. Jonathan sat at the dining table, stacks of folders spread before him like battle maps. He looked up when he heard the phone hit the tiles. You should let me handle this, he said. You can't fight every headline. They're not headlines, I shot back. voice sharper than I meant it to be. "They're bullets." He closed one of the folders and leaned back. "Vivienne, they're panicking. That's all this is. Margot's got her hooks deep in the press. She's spinning this to make you look unstable." I poured black coffee into a chipped mug, the only one in my penthouse I'd never replaced. It was an old thing from college, the last relic of who I'd been before all this. "Let her spin. It won't change the math." Jonathan's eyes met mine. "It's not the math I'm worried about. It's you." "Don't," I said, setting the mug down harder than I should have. "Don't you dare look at me like I'm about to break." He stood, walked around the table and rested his hands on my shoulders. His touch was warm, grounding, but my skin buzzed under it like a live wire. "You've spent so long fighting alone. I'm here now. You don't have to do it like this anymore." I stared at him, at the gentle lines at the corners of his eyes, the exhaustion that mirrored my own. "I know," I whispered, letting the words hang there like a fragile promise. ... The storm outside had calmed to a gray drizzle by the time I arrived at the office. The lobby was hushed, 100 eyes flicking up from phones and whispered conversations as I passed. Some looked curious, some terrified. One young analyst ducked her head so fast her glasses fell off. Good, let them fear me. It was safer for everyone. I took the elevator alone. My reflection in the polished doors stared back. A ghost, draped in a black coat, hair pinned so tightly my scalp ached. This was the price. The armor. Every step up was another piece of myself locked away behind glass and steel. The top floor was a hive of activity. Margot had set up camp in my old office, which now technically belonged to me again. I didn't bother knocking. I pushed the door open and stepped inside. She was on the phone, pacing, her free hand knotted into a fist at her side. When she saw me, her eyes narrowed into slits, but she kept talking. Her voice a practiced blade slicing through the air. "No, I don't care what the shareholders say, this is salvageable. We can spin this, call me back." She dropped the phone onto the desk, the smack echoing in the silence. "How dare you come in here?" "It's my office," I said evenly, shrugging off my coat. "Technically, you're trespassing." She stalked toward me, stopping inches away. "You think this makes you the hero? Destroying everything Dad built. Everything I've built." "I didn't destroy anything," I said. "I protected it." "Dot?" She laughed, the sound bitter and raw. "Protected it? You've turned us into a circus!" "The board's in chaos. The press is feasting on us. Venture tech is threatening lawsuits. You think this is winning?" "It's survival," I shot back. "Do you think Carter Bishop cared about you? About this family? He was going to gut us and toss you aside the second your name stopped being convenient." Margot's eyes glistened with unshed tears. "You think I don't know that? You think I haven't been fighting for every scrap of respect since I was 12? Dad never thought I was enough. Mom only ever wanted me to be you. And you disappeared. You left me here to pick up the pieces while you played ghost." The words hung between us, the office walls pressing in like the ribs of some great beast. For a moment, I didn't see my rival. I saw my sister, raw and human, as broken as I was. "I didn't leave because of you," I said quietly. "I left because of them. And because of me." She laughed again, but it cracked halfway through. "Well, congratulations. You're back. You're in charge. Now what? You're going to save us all?" I stepped closer, my hand hovering between us like I might touch her arm. But I didn't. "I'm going to fix what they broke, and you're going to help me." Her eyes widened, confusion flickering across her face. "Help you? You're insane if you think." "You're brilliant, Margot," I cut in. "You're ruthless, strategic, terrifying. Everything I need, if you'll stand with me instead of against me." She stared at me, her breath shallow. "Why would I do that?" "Because it's either that," I said, "or we both watch them tear this place apart while we burn each other to the ground." A beat of silence. Another. Then she turned away, pacing to the window. The city sprawled beneath us, indifferent and vast. "Get out," she said finally, her voice low. "I need to think." I left her there, alone with the storm clouds. I didn't know if she'd come around. But for the first time, I thought maybe, just maybe, she would. Jonathan found me hours later in the archive room, the one place in the building no one bothered to look for me. Shelves of old ledgers, dusty boxes of photos no one cared about anymore. I sat cross-legged on the floor, flipping through a binder older than both of us combined. "I thought I'd find you here," he said, crouching beside me. "I needed a reminder," I said, "of what we're fighting for." He brushed his thumb across my cheek, wiping away a streak of dust. "You're not alone, Vivienne. You never were." I closed the binder, resting my hand on the leather cover. "It doesn't feel like that." "It will," he said. "One day." I looked at him, at the way the harsh overhead light softened the edges of his tired face. I leaned forward, pressed my lips to his. Brief, electric, a promise made in the hush of forgotten things. When I pulled back, he smiled. "About time." I laughed, the sound muffled by the stacks around us. "Back to work?" "Back to work," he agreed, and together we rose. By midnight, the building was empty except for us. Margot had slipped out hours ago, her silence the only sign she was still thinking. My parents hadn't called, but I knew they would. They always did, when the world pressed too hard for them to bear alone. As Jonathan locked the last file cabinet, I stood by the window, the city lights blurred by the rain still spitting from the sky. I pressed my palm to the cold glass and made a promise to the girl I'd been, the one who waited every year for a happy birthday that never came. No more waiting. This was mine now. This story took us a long time. If you like it, subscribe. Now back to the story. End of part 5. Say next, when you're ready for part 6, the moment when Vivienne's family will push back harder than ever before. The rain had finally stopped, but the city outside my penthouse window looked no less gray for it. Dawn bled across the skyline in thin veins of pale gold, mocking me with its promise of a fresh start. There were no fresh starts left. Not for me, not for Margot, not for any of us. The storm that had broken over our family had only just begun to rage. I sipped cold coffee at my kitchen island, while the headlines scrolled across my tablet. Callahan boardroom bloodbath. Family feud threatens corporate giant. I knew every word was planted. Margot's hand in the media was obvious, but it wasn't just her. My parents had stepped out from behind their manicured facade at last, working overtime to paint me as the unstable heiress who'd come home to burn the empire down. I'd expected it, but it still burned. Jonathan arrived before 8, his hair still damp from the shower, tie loose around his neck. He dropped 2 bags of greasy bagels on the counter and gave me that look, the one that said he'd spent the entire night cleaning up after me again. "Any new surprises?" I asked. He ran a hand through his hair. "Your father called an emergency board vote for tomorrow morning. They're pushing a motion to remove you as CEO. They're using your mental instability angle as their leverage." I let out a short laugh, though nothing about it was funny. "The company has no CEO." "Exactly," he said. "But they're rewriting the bylaws as we speak. If they can convince the minority shareholders that you're too volatile, they'll try to consolidate a vote of no confidence." I set down my mug. "So they're going to play dirty." Jonathan's eyes softened. "Vivienne, they're not just playing dirty, they're fighting for their survival." "So am I," I said. ... The day unfolded in a haze of strategy meetings, tense calls, and hushed conversations in corridors that suddenly felt too narrow. My once silent allies on the board were either hiding or hedging their bets, waiting to see which Callahan would bleed out first. I could see it in their eyes when they passed me in the hallway: fear, pity, calculation. By dusk, I found myself outside the old family townhouse, the one we'd grown up in. The lights glowed warm in the windows, silhouettes drifting behind linen curtains. I should have turned away. There was nothing for me here but ghosts. But my hand lifted and rapped against the door anyway. Margot answered. She looked exhausted, hair scraped back, dark circles under her eyes, a glass of red wine clutched in one trembling hand. "What do you want?" "To talk," I said. "Not here." She hesitated, eyes darting behind her. "They're inside. They're furious." "So am I," I said. "Come on." She grabbed her coat and followed me out into the cold night. We ended up at a little park down the block, the kind where we used to ride our bikes until dusk. The playground was empty, the swings creaking in the wind. Margot sat on a bench and pulled her knees up under her coat. "They think I'm weak for even meeting you." "You're not weak," I said. "You're the strongest person I know." She barked a laugh. "Says the woman who just ripped everything out from under me." "I didn't do it to hurt you." "You did it to save yourself," she shot back. "Be honest. You didn't care about the company until it gave you a weapon against them." I swallowed that truth. Maybe. "But that doesn't mean I'll let them destroy you." She turned her head sharply. "What does that mean?" "It means you can still stand with me," I said. "I'm not your enemy, Margot. They are—" She shook her head. "They're our parents." "Exactly," I said, my voice low. "Our parents. Who forgot my birthday for your promotion. Who would sell you out the second you stopped being useful? Do you really think they'll protect you if they win?" She fell silent, eyes fixed on the swings swaying back and forth in the wind. "What do you want from me?" "Your vote," I said. "Tomorrow. I need you to stand beside me." Her laugh was sharp and bright, echoing off the empty slide. "You're insane." "Maybe," I said, "but you're the only one who knows how they move. If we stand together, we can outmaneuver them." She drained the last of her wine and hurled the empty glass at the slide. It shattered, shards catching the pale streetlight like stars. "God, I hate you sometimes." "Good," I said. "Use it." She stared at me. "And what do I get if I help you?" "You get to keep what you've built," I said. "No more backroom deals, no more being Dad's pawn. You'll run creative your way, but you answer to me." A flicker of something crossed her face. "Hope? Fear?" I couldn't tell. "You're asking me to choose you over them," she whispered. "I'm asking you to choose yourself," I said. The swing creaked again, as if agreeing with me. She didn't say yes. But she didn't say no either. ... Back in my penthouse, the hours crawled by. Jonathan sat across from me, laptop open, lines of strategy scrolling down his screen. Every so often, he'd glance at me. A question in his eyes he was too cautious to voice. "Say it," I said finally. He set the laptop aside. "Do you trust her?" "I don't trust anyone," I said. "But I believe she hates them more than she hates me right now." "That's enough." He gave a short laugh, leaning back in his chair. "You really are your father's daughter." "No," I said. "I'm what he wishes he could be." The clock on the wall ticked past midnight. I rose, stretching the tension out of my spine. "I'm going to try to sleep." Jonathan stood too, hesitating. "Vivienne." I turned, catching the flicker of vulnerability he'd tried so hard to hide. "What?" "When this is over, whatever happens, what then?" I walked back to him, pressed my forehead to his. "Then," I said, "we get to find out who we are when we're not fighting." He kissed me, slow and deep. A promise wrapped in salt and steel. Dash, 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 dot. Dawn broke clear and brutal. The boardroom hummed with tension before the vote. Margot arrived last, her eyes hidden behind dark sunglasses. She didn't look at me as she took her seat. My parents sat at the end of the table, the picture of icy confidence. My father cleared his throat, his voice a weapon honed by decades of boardrooms and backroom deals. "This motion is simple," he said. "Vivienne Callahan has demonstrated she is unfit to manage the responsibilities of majority shareholder and CEO. The board will vote to remove her effective immediately." I leaned back, fingers drumming on the table. Proceed. One by one the votes were cast. Yes, 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 no, yes. The room seemed to shrink with each word, the air squeezing tighter around my ribs. Finally, it was Margot's turn. She lifted her sunglasses and met my eyes. 1,000 unsaid things in her gaze. Then she turned to the room. "No," she said clearly. "I vote no." My father's jaw snapped shut. "Margot, what are you doing?" She shrugged. "Choosing myself." The room erupted into chaos. I stood, heart hammering so hard I thought it might burst. Jonathan's hand closed around mine under the table. The vote was deadlocked. The motion failed. My father stood, eyes blazing. "You think this is over? We made you, both of you. We can break you." I stepped forward, my voice steady and sharp as glass. "Try." The storm outside was gone, but in here, it had only just begun. End of part 6. Tell me next, when you're ready for part 7, the retaliation won't wait. When the boardroom finally emptied, the silence it left behind was deafening. The tension that had pulsed through the glass walls, that sharp metallic taste of betrayal and survival, it clung to the polished mahogany table like smoke. I stood there for a moment longer, hands flat on the varnished wood, my reflection rippling back at me in the dark sheen. The woman looking back was unfamiliar, eyes sharper, mouth set in a line that spoke of battles fought alone. Margot was the last to leave. She paused by the door, her heels clicking a hesitant rhythm. "Vivienne," she said, her voice raw, "don't think for a second that this makes us friends." "I don't," I said. "But it makes us something better." She didn't respond. The door closed behind her with a soft click that sounded a lot like a lock snapping into place. Jonathan appeared by my side, the ever-present folder in his hand. "The press is going to have a field day with this." "Let them," I said. "They're going to talk anyway." He laid a warm hand on my back. "You should go home, rest." "I can't," I said, pulling away. "Not yet. .. I didn't go home. I went down to the archives again instead. The basement smelled of old paper and secrets. All the history that built this family and company piled high in boxes no one had opened in years. I pulled file after file, reading through the old acquisition deals, the barely legal tax maneuvers my father had perfected, the old letters from our grandfather to his silent partners in the earliest days. I found a photograph tucked into one of the binders. Me and Margot, 10 and 12, in matching Easter dresses. I looked so small, clinging to her hand. I wondered when we'd lost that, the easy way we used to stand side by side. A soft knock echoed through the stacks. Jonathan stood there, tie loosened, eyes bleary but steady. "They're calling in old favors, Vivienne. Board members who didn't show today. Quiet investors. Your father's trying to line up a civil suit to challenge your share block." "Of course he is," I said, sliding the photo back where I found it. "He's too arrogant to just accept he lost." Jonathan stepped closer. "What if he's right? What if they find something that sticks?" "Then we fight," I said simply. "We fight until they run out of knives. .. 3 days later, the retaliation arrived like an avalanche. First came the leaks, personal emails from my private server, ripped out of context and twisted into clickbait headlines. Callahan heiress plots to oust parents. Insider reveals Vivienne's mental breakdown. My old therapist's notes, stolen from some dusty insurance file, made the rounds on gossip sites. The word unstable was now attached to my name in every headline. Margot called me late that night. "They're out of control," she said, her voice muffled by tears she didn't want me to hear. "I know," I said. "They're trying to break me in public before they come for me in court." "We need a counterattack," she said. "Something that makes them look small." I laughed, the sound bitter. "That won't be hard." "I'm serious," she snapped. "You wanted me on your side? Then listen to me. We have to get ahead of this. Make them pay." It was the first time in my life I'd ever heard her talk about them, like she wasn't still one of them, and that gave me hope. Dash 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 dot dot. The next morning, Jonathan and I sat side by side in the old boardroom, the one our grandfather had built when Callahan Industries was still just a shipping company run out of a tiny harbor warehouse. The place smelled of oak and old money. I could almost feel the ghosts of our ancestors watching, waiting to see if I'd sink or swim. "They've called an emergency shareholder meeting," Jonathan said. 2 days from now. They're going to demand an audit of your acquisition of the majority shares. They'll paint it as fraud, insider manipulation. "It wasn't fraud," I said. "Doesn't matter," he replied. "It just has to look like it." I let out a slow breath. "Then we show them something worse." Jonathan raised an eyebrow. "What did you find in the archives?" I pushed a thin file across the table. "Proof that Dad siphoned millions from the pension fund 20 years ago to pay off bad debts. Quietly replaced it before the audits hit, but the wire records are still buried. I have the receipts." Jonathan's eyes widened. "Vivienne, that's dynamite. If this goes public—" "He'll be finished," I said, "and so will she." I meant Mom, though I hated the acid taste of it on my tongue. But they left me no choice. Jonathan studied me for a long moment, then nodded. "All right, let's end this. Dash 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 dot dot." The night before the shareholder meeting, Margot came to my penthouse. She didn't knock, just stormed in, hair dripping from the rain, eyes wild. "They're going to disown us," she said, breathless. "You know that, right? They'll cut us off." "We've been cut off for years," I said. "We were just too blind to see it." She sank onto the couch, wrapping her arms around her knees. "I hate them. I hate them so much." I sat beside her, not touching her. I didn't trust myself not to break. "Then let's make sure they can't hurt us anymore." She looked at me, eyes bloodshot but clear. "After this, what are we?" "Whatever we want," I said. "No more puppets." Dash 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 dot dot. The shareholder meeting was packed. The room buzzed with tension, cameras rolling, reporters lingering just outside the glass doors like vultures at a battlefield. My parents sat at the head of the table, side by side. The last time they'd ever looked like a united front, Dad cleared his throat. "The purpose of this meeting is to address grave concerns about—" "Save it," I said, rising from my seat. "Before you spin your fairy tales, let me show everyone what you really are." I held up the file. A hush fell over the room as the first pages hit the screen. Old wire transfers, bank statements. The proof they'd thought was buried forever. Margot sat beside me, arms crossed, chin high. Jonathan's hand hovered near mine, steadying me when my knees threatened to buckle. The room exploded. Reporters shouted questions. Lawyers scrambled to confiscate copies. My father's face drained of all color, a statue cracking from the inside out. Mom tried to speak, but the words stuck in her throat. I didn't give them a chance to recover. "This," I said, voice shaking but strong, "is the legacy you wanted to protect? This is the empire you would sell your daughters to keep?" My father slammed his hand on the table. "You ungrateful!" "No," I cut him off, calm now. "I'm not ungrateful. I'm free." Dash 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 dot dot. Hours later, the building emptied out like a sinking ship. The last loyalists abandoned my parents faster than rats fleeing fire. The vote to censure them passed in under 10 minutes. Their lawyers didn't even bother to object. Margot and I stood side by side at the windows as dawn broke, the city gilded in gold for the first time in days. "It's really over," she said, her voice small. "Not yet," I said, slipping my arm around her shoulders. "But it will be." She rested her head against me. "What if we're just like them?" "Then we do better," I said. "One day at a time." Behind us, Jonathan cleared his throat. "Press conference in an hour. You ready?" I turned to him, to Margot, to the city outside. "Let them come," I said. "We're ready." End of Part 7. Say next when you're ready for part 8. The world is watching now, and Vivienne's victory won't come without a price. The city was bathed in that bleached winter light that makes everything feel raw and exposed. The marble lobby floors of Callahan Industries gleamed so brightly they looked wet. I stood just inside the main doors, watching the flood of reporters and flashing cameras gathering outside the glass, my reflection flickering between their shouting faces like a ghost haunting my own story. Margot was next to me, shoulders squared, chin lifted, the same stance she'd used at every gala, every charity function where our parents paraded her like a trophy. But now there was steel beneath her polish. She had chosen her side, and there was no going back. Jonathan appeared from the elevators, his phone pressed to his ear, his brow furrowed. "Press conference in 5, he said, voice low but urgent. Legal team wants you to keep it short. The shareholders are jittery enough already." "They'll be more than jittery by the time I'm finished," I said. Margot shot me a sideways look. "You're enjoying this." "No," I said honestly. "I'm surviving this." We stepped through the glass doors and into the chaos. Microphones thrust toward my face. Bulbs flashed like gunfire. The same reporters who'd painted me as an unstable saboteur a week ago were now clawing for a scrap of my version of the truth. They were hungry, desperate. I had no intention of feeding them everything. Jonathan cleared his throat, stepping forward like a human shield. "Vivienne Callahan will make a brief statement. No questions at this time." I stepped up to the portable podium they'd set on the marble steps. The city skyline rose behind me, a reminder of all I'd fought for and all I still had to lose. "For years," I began, my voice echoing off the stone, "this company was more than just a business. It was my family's legacy, built by the blood, sweat, and ambition of generations. But somewhere along the line, that ambition twisted into something poisonous." I paused, feeling the wind bite at my cheeks. "Today, you've seen what happens when secrets are left to rot in the dark. You've seen the truth, and the truth is, the people who should have protected this company failed it. They failed you." My gaze drifted to Margot, standing a step behind me. She didn't flinch. She knew this was the price. "I won't pretend I'm perfect," I continued. "I won't pretend this hasn't cost us all something. But I promise you this. We will rebuild. We will be better. And we will never again be held hostage by the ghosts of our past." A hush settled over the courtyard, the reporters leaning in, like they might catch some last whispered confession. But there was nothing left to say. Not here, not now. I stepped back, letting Jonathan call an end to the conference as the questions erupted behind me. Back inside, the elevator ride up felt like an ascent into something I couldn't quite name. Margot pressed the close button with a force that said she was barely keeping it together. "You made me look like an accomplice," she said once the doors slid shut. "You are an accomplice," I said. "You saved this with me." Her eyes burned into mine. "I'm not you, Vivienne. I can't feed on their fear the way you do." "Then find another way to live with it," I snapped. "Or walk away." She didn't answer. She just stared at her reflection in the mirrored doors, like she was looking for the version of herself that used to exist. The golden girl who'd never needed saving. When the doors opened, Jonathan was already fielding a flurry of calls. "Legal wants to settle with your parents out of court," he said, handing me a folder that felt like it weighed 100 pounds. "A full buyout. They keep their personal assets. They sign non-competes for the next 10 years. "Do they keep the house?" I asked. Jonathan hesitated. "The board thinks it would look bad if you took it." "The board doesn't get a say," I said, my voice sharp as broken glass. "They used that house like a stage for every lie they ever told. They don't get to keep it." Margot sucked in a breath. "You're going to make them homeless." "They're not homeless," I snapped. "They're just not royalty anymore." She flinched but said nothing. I knew she was picturing it. Our mother packing family silver into a moving truck. Our father shouting at her for folding his suits the wrong way. Some wounds don't heal with a check. Dash 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 dot dot. That night, my phone didn't stop ringing. Calls from old friends I hadn't heard from in years, congratulating me on my victory. Reporters offering exclusives. Opportunists fishing for scraps. I let them all go to voicemail. In the quiet between the calls, I could almost hear the old version of me asking, "Is this what you wanted?" Jonathan sat on the couch, his laptop open on his knees, fingers drumming against the keys as he drafted statement after statement. "Come to bed," I said softly. "In a minute," he murmured. I crossed the room, took the laptop from his hands, and closed it. "Now." He looked up at me, eyes tired but warm. "You don't have to do this alone anymore, you know." "I know," I whispered, pressing my lips to his forehead. "But I do have to do it. Dash, 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 dot, dot." The next morning, I sat alone in the boardroom again, the place that had become my confessional, my battlefield, my prison. I stared at the chair at the head of the table. It still smelled faintly of my father's cologne, like old money and older grudges. Margot slipped in, closing the door behind her. She didn't sit, just leaned against the wall, arms folded tight across her chest. "They want to meet," she said. "One last time, at the house." "It's done," I said. "They signed. They want to see you," she insisted. "Not me, you." I met her eyes, searching for the trap, but there was nothing. Just the tired ache of someone who'd realized too late that some bridges can't be rebuilt. Dash 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 dot dot. The house was dark when I arrived. The grand chandelier in the foyer, the same one I used to stare at during Christmas dinners, when they forgot I was there, flickered dimly above our heads. My parents sat side by side on the old velvet settee, a bottle of whiskey between them, the good glasses in their hands. They looked smaller now, not the titans who'd raised me, but two people stripped of their kingdom, clinging to each other because there was no one else left. "You could have come home years ago," my mother said, her voice softer than I'd ever heard it. "You didn't have to do this. You could have remembered my birthday," I said. "You could have seen me." My father's laugh was brittle, the sound of a man who'd lost his last bet. "We made you, don't forget that." "No," I said. "You made this." "I made me." I turned away before they could see the tears burning behind my eyes. As I stepped out into the night, the weight of the keys in my pocket felt like both a victory and a tombstone. Dash, 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 dot, dot. Back at my penthouse, I found Margot waiting. She held 2 glasses of champagne, her eyes rimmed red but fierce. "To the Callahan sisters," she said, lifting her glass. "The last ones standing." I clinked my glass against hers. "To the last ones standing." The city stretched out below us, vast and glittering. Somewhere deep inside me, the little girl who'd waited for candles and cake finally blew them out herself. End of part 8. Say next when you're ready for part 9. Vivienne has the crown, but the real price is only beginning to show. Owning something and controlling it are not the same. I learned that the hard way. In the weeks that followed the final shareholder vote, my life became a chessboard with too many queens, each piece carved from bone and history. Every morning I woke in my penthouse, the one with the glass walls that made the city look like it bowed to me, but it didn't feel like power. It felt like a cage. Margot moved through the new hierarchy like she'd been born for it. She wore her power like a second skin, every meeting a performance for the boardroom audience she once fought to impress. Now she had no one left to please but herself. And me. Jonathan was always there, a shadow at my shoulder, one step ahead of the next leak, the next smear, the next backroom plot. He'd become the iron bolt that kept my fractured world from splitting apart. Sometimes I'd wake to find him asleep at my kitchen table, papers spread out like a protective shield. But even his presence couldn't keep the rot from seeping in. Dash, 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 dot, dot. One morning, an anonymous envelope arrived. Inside, a photo. My father at a quiet lunch with an old competitor. An old competitor now flush with new capital. A rival who smelled blood in the water. I showed Jonathan the photo while we stood by the floor-to-ceiling windows. He turned it over, read the cryptic note scrawled on the back. He's trying to raise capital to challenge you. He can't win, I said, but my voice wavered. He doesn't have the shares. Jonathan's jaw ticked. He doesn't need the shares, Vivienne. He just needs people to believe he has them. Belief. Perception. The old game. ... That afternoon, Margot found me in the old family boardroom, the one we still used for legacy meetings that looked good on investor brochures. She paused in the doorway, her eyes skimming the thick binder of financials I'd been cross-referencing. "You're not sleeping," she said. It wasn't a question. "Neither are you." I shot back. She stepped closer, her heels silent on the faded carpet. "He's testing you. He wants you to crack." "I'm not cracking," I said too quickly. Margot leaned against the edge of the conference table, arms folded. "We have to go public with this. Expose him." "No," I said. "We can't start a smear war in the middle of our first quarter. The shareholders are skittish. We need them steady." She tilted her head. "And you? Are you steady?" I closed the binder with a snap that made her flinch. "I don't have a choice. ... The nights bled into each other after that. A parade of late calls, board meetings that ran until dawn, and lawyers who spoke in riddles. I was too tired to untangle. I caught Jonathan watching me once while I stood in front of the mirror brushing my hair, his reflection behind mine. His eyes looked haunted. Or maybe it was me. "What if you just let it go?" he asked one night when we were alone, our limbs tangled on my bed, the city lights flickering on the ceiling. "Let what go?" I asked. "The company, the house, the legacy, all of it." I turned to him, my voice flat. "Would you?" He didn't answer. He didn't need to. ... In the middle of the storm, there were moments of calm, if you could call them that. One night, Margot and I sat on the floor of my penthouse. A bottle of wine between us, our backs pressed against the cold glass. The city lights glowed below, oblivious. "Do you ever wish we could go back?" she asked. "Before all of this?" "To what?" I asked. "To birthdays they forgot? To promotions they threw parties for without cake for me?" "To when we still believed they loved us," she said. I looked at her. This sister I'd nearly destroyed, who'd nearly destroyed me in return. "We're still here," I said. "That has to count for something." She raised her glass. "To survival." I raised mine. "To survival. ... It was Jonathan who found the final blow. He arrived at my office at dawn, a manila folder in his hands. He looked like he hadn't slept in days. "I need you to see this," he said. Inside the folder, a series of payments. Old ones. Transfers hidden inside shell companies. Money that had passed from our father's accounts to our mother's, and out again to places even the auditors hadn't found. "They're bleeding you from the shadows," he said. "It's not just your father, it's her too." I stared at the numbers until they blurred. "How much?" "Enough to turn the board if you don't stop it now." The room felt suddenly too small, the walls pressing in like a vice. I thought of all the nights I'd stayed up, convinced this would be over if I could just break them once. But you don't break people like my parents. You just reveal how deep they're willing to go to save themselves. "Call the lawyers," I said. "We freeze every asset. We pull every record. If they want to play dirty, fine. Let's drag it all into the light." Jonathan hesitated. "Vivienne, you know what that means, right?" "It means I finally bury them," I said, my voice a whisper. "For good. ... That night, when the court orders hit their bank accounts, I got the call I'd been waiting for since the night they forgot my birthday. My mother's voice on the other end of the line was the smallest I'd ever heard it. "Please, Vivienne, stop this." "You started this," I said. "You and him." "We're your parents," she said, and I could hear her crying now, the sound a dagger in my ribs. "You're supposed to protect us." "You should have protected me," I said. She didn't answer. She didn't have to. ... By dawn, it was done. The accounts frozen. The lawyers scrambling. The empire mine in every sense that mattered. But the cost of holding it settled in my bones like lead. Jonathan came to me while I watched the sunrise from my office window. He touched my shoulder and I leaned into his warmth like it was the only real thing left in the world. "You did it," he said. "No," I said, my voice flat. "I survived it." He kissed the top of my head, a promise without words. Now what? I stared out at the city that no longer looked like it bowed to me. It looked like a battlefield I'd never really leave. "Now," I said, "we rebuild. ... Margot arrived just before I left for the night. She looked at me with eyes that were older than I remembered, her shoulders set in that unyielding way that made her so formidable. "You're going to spend the rest of your life fighting ghosts," she said. "You know that, right?" "I know," I said. "But at least they're my ghosts now." She nodded, then did something we hadn't done since we were children. She hugged me. Not for show, not for the cameras, just for us. In that moment, I realized the price of the crown wasn't the sleepless nights or the endless battles. It was that it would always be ours to bear, and no one would ever take it from us again. End of part 9. Say next when you're ready for part 10. The ghosts aren't done yet, and Vivienne's final reckoning is closer than she thinks. The city hadn't changed. The sky still bruised purple at dawn, the streetlights still flickered when the wind pressed too hard against the glass. But I had changed. You can't rip out your family by the roots and expect the soil to stay the same. In the weeks after I froze their accounts, I didn't sleep much. I moved through my penthouse like a ghost, the place too large for one person's footsteps. The marble floors, the sweeping windows. They mocked me with my own success. Every time my phone buzzed, a fresh report came in. Asset seizures. Wire transfers reversed. The last pieces of their safety net disintegrating. Jonathan kept watch like a sentinel. Margot drifted in and out. Sometimes she'd storm in, flinging accusations. Sometimes she'd curl up beside me on the couch and ask, "Did we do the right thing?" I never had an answer for her. I don't think she wanted one. ... The final blow didn't come from a hostile board or a rival firm. It came from my mother. She showed up at the penthouse one Sunday morning, her coat pulled tight around her shoulders, the pearls she never stopped wearing trembling at her throat. "Vivienne," she said when I opened the door, "may I come in?" I should have slammed the door. I should have called security. But I stepped aside because some old part of me still wanted to believe she could be a mother. She stood in my living room, looking so small against the towering windows. "You've taken everything," she said. "Your father is gone." "Gone where?" I asked, the cold rising from my stomach to my throat. She laughed. A thin, glassy sound. "Does it matter? He can't fight you anymore. He's left me to clean up his mess, just like always." She reached into her bag and pulled out a slim envelope. "These are the last papers. Sign them and it's done. We walk away, no more court battles, no more lawyers. ... I took the envelope, turning it over in my hands. "Why now?" "Because," she said, her eyes shining, "I'm tired, Vivienne. I'm tired of fighting you. I'm tired of pretending I know how to win." Her voice broke then, the crack running straight down the middle of my rib cage. "I didn't know how to love you both," she whispered. "I didn't know how to love you at all." I didn't have words for that. So I opened the envelope and signed. ... When she left, I stood by the window. The city spread out like an ocean of lights. Jonathan came up behind me, wrapping his arms around my waist. "It's over," he said. "No," I said. "It's never over." He turned me to face him, his eyes searching mine. "Then let me help you carry it." I wanted to believe him. I wanted to believe that all the pain could be shared, that the weight could be halved if I just let him hold it too. But some things grow roots so deep they can never be pulled free. Dash 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 dot dot. The next day I returned to the house. The house they'd signed over to me. The house where every lie had been told. The lock clicked under my hand like an old secret. The rooms were bare now, furniture draped in white sheets that looked like ghosts waiting for a funeral. I wandered through the halls. The dining room where they'd toasted Margot's promotion. The kitchen where they'd forgotten my birthday cake. The study where my father had plotted my undoing. Each step felt like reclaiming a piece of myself I'd buried to survive. Upstairs, I found the old nursery. The wallpaper faded to a dull yellow, the rocking horse gathering dust in the corner. I sat on the edge of the tiny bed and let myself remember. The nights I'd waited for someone to come tuck me in. The mornings I'd woken to the echo of laughter that wasn't meant for me. I stayed there for hours. When I finally rose, I left the keys on the windowsill. The house didn't belong to me anymore. Not really. It belonged to the past, and I was done living there. Dash 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 dot dot. Outside, Margot was waiting in her car, the engine idling. She watched me through the windshield, her eyes red-rimmed, her hair pulled back in that severe bun she wore like armor. "Did you do it?" she asked when I slid into the passenger seat. "I let it go," I said. She reached across the console, her fingers brushing mine. "Does it feel better?" "No," I said. "But it feels finished." She exhaled, her shoulders slumping. "Then let's go home." I almost asked her where home was now, but the words caught in my throat. Maybe home was this. The two of us, fractured and stitched back together, driving away from the wreckage we'd been born into. Dash 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 dot dot. In the weeks that followed, we rebuilt. Not the house, that would stand empty for as long as the city remembered our name, but the company. The people who'd watched us tear each other apart now looked to us to steady the ship. We sat side by side in boardrooms, our signatures on the same pages for once. We held town halls for employees who'd feared for their pensions. We made promises, and we kept them. Jonathan stayed, though sometimes I saw the question in his eyes. When would I stop fighting ghosts? When would I let myself believe I'd won? One night he found me on the balcony, the wind whipping my hair around my face like something wild and free. "Do you ever wish you could go back?" he asked, echoing Margot's question from weeks before. "No," I said, turning to him, "because back there, I didn't exist. Not really." He smiled, pulling me close. "And now?" "Now," I said, pressing my forehead to his, "I'm here." Dash 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 dot dot. They wrote stories about us for years after. The sisters who toppled their parents, the heiress who owned the company that once owned her. They turned us into symbols we'd never asked to be. But behind the headlines, we were just two women trying to make sense of a legacy too heavy for anyone to carry alone. Sometimes, on quiet nights, Margot would call me. "Do you remember the year they forgot?" she'd ask. And I'd know exactly what she meant. "I remember," I'd say. "Never again," she'd whisper, and I'd promise her and myself that she was right. Dash 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 dot dot. When the press finally moved on, when the lawyers stopped calling, when the old house was sold to strangers who didn't know or care who'd lived there first, that's when I knew the reckoning was truly done. It didn't fix everything. It didn't fix me. But it gave me the one thing they could never take away. My name, my voice, my place at the head of the table. I was Vivienne Callahan, the forgotten daughter, the last one standing, and for the first time in my life, that was enough. End of part 10. Say next when you're ready for part 11. The ghosts are gone, but new battles always come. When the last of the boxes from the old house were finally hauled away, I thought I'd feel lighter, like I'd slipped out of a too-tight dress I'd worn my entire life. But the weight didn't lift. It settled deeper, like the roots of my name had found new soil to burrow into, heavier than before. Callahan Industries was mine. Margot stood beside me now, our uneasy alliance slowly knitting itself into something real, something stronger than the cold-blooded rivalry we'd been taught to cherish. But as winter gave way to a reluctant spring, I saw it in the eyes of the people who filled our hallways. Doubt. Fear. A question that lingered like smoke every time I passed. Is she strong enough to hold this? Jonathan never asked me that question out loud. But I heard it in the way he spoke softer now, the way he watched me when I stood alone by the window, the city glittering like an endless temptation beyond the glass. Dash 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 dot dot. The first sign of the next battle came in a plain manila envelope, slipped under my office door late one night. No logo, no signature. Just a single sheet inside, printed in a typeface that looked like a threat. "We know who you really are, Vivienne, and we know what you did to get here." Jonathan read it over my shoulder, his breath warm against my neck. "Empty threat," he said, trying to sound certain. "People think they can scare you, that's all." But I knew better. I knew the way people like my father worked, the way they infected your dreams with whispers you could never unhear. Someone wanted me to flinch. Someone wanted me to run. I did neither. Dash 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 dot dot. The next week, the whispers grew legs. Old shareholders, the ones who'd stayed silent when I took the house, when I froze the accounts, started asking questions in meetings they never used to attend. Who's really in charge now? Is Vivienne stable enough for the long term? How can we trust the Callahan sisters after what they did to their own parents? Margot bristled every time she heard it. "They're parasites," she hissed one night, pouring whiskey into 2 mismatched tumblers in my penthouse kitchen. "They never asked Dad these questions when he bled the pension fund dry." "They didn't need to," I said. "Fear kept them loyal." "So what?" She set the glass in front of me, her eyes flashing. "We become him?" I looked at the glass. The amber liquid shimmered under the chandelier light like liquid gold. Or poison. "No," I said. "We become something better." Dash, 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 dot, dot. The attacks got bolder. Anonymous tips to the press about questionable trades I'd made during the buyback. Half-truths spun into rumors that clung to my name like barbed wire. I could see the headlines forming in real time. Heiress or tyrant? Callahan power grab faces scrutiny. Every word of it was a dagger aimed at the heart of what I'd built. Jonathan called me at 2 a.m. one night. "I've traced the leaks," he said. "They're coming from inside the company." Who? I asked, though I already knew. It was never strangers you had to fear, it was the people who once swore loyalty with a smile. "Gideon," he said, "your father's old fixer. He's been whispering to the press, the board, anyone who'll listen." I closed my eyes, the tension behind them flaring like a migraine. "Of course he has." "Vivienne," Jonathan said, his voice rough with worry. "We can bury him. Just say the word." "No," I said, forcing the words past the bile in my throat. "We do this my way. No more shadows, no more knives in the dark. Dash 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 dot dot." 2 days later, I called a town hall. Every employee, every executive, every shareholder who cared to watch the live stream. The auditorium hummed with unease as I stepped onto the stage. Margot flanked me on the left. Jonathan stood to my right. My armor and my anchor. "Some of you have heard the rumors," I began, my voice echoing through the cavernous space. "Some of you have whispered them yourselves. That I didn't earn this. That I'm too unstable to lead. That I don't know what it means to protect what we built together." I paused, letting my gaze find the faces that looked away too quickly. "You're right about one thing. I didn't earn this the way you expected. I didn't climb the ladder rung by rung, shaking hands and bowing to the right people. I took it. Because it was mine. Because they forgot I existed until I made them remember." A hush spread through the room, like everyone had stopped breathing at once. "You want to know who I really am?" I asked. "I'm the girl they forgot. I'm the woman they underestimated. And I'm the reason you still have jobs, pensions, futures." Margot stepped forward, her voice cutting through the tension like a blade. "And I'm the sister they tried to use as bait. We're done being pawns in someone else's game." I looked at the sea of faces. Some nodded, some glared, but they were listening. That was enough. "If you want to leave, leave," I said. "But if you stand with us, you'd better be ready to fight for this company like your life depends on it. Because it does. Dash 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 dot dot." The days after that felt different. The whispers didn't stop, but they got quieter. Gideon's influence evaporated under the glare of sunlight. The old man who'd once brokered every dirty secret found himself exiled, his name scraped off office doors like rust. Margot worked harder than ever, burning through pitch meetings and creative summits with a ferocity that made the board flinch. "If they won't respect us," she told me one night, eyes gleaming across the conference table, "they'll fear us." "Not fear," I said. "Resolve." She grinned. "Same difference. .. One night, I sat alone in my office, the city below awash in rain and neon. I thought of the girl I used to be, the one waiting for candles, for a cake that never came. The one who thought power was something you claimed once, then never had to fight for again. Jonathan slipped in quietly, carrying a slice of chocolate cake on a chipped plate. "Happy birthday," he said, though it wasn't my birthday. "Not really, not yet." I smiled, tears pricking at the corners of my eyes. "It's not until next month." He set the plate in front of me anyway. "This year, you don't have to wait." Margot appeared behind him, a single candle stuck in the frosting, the flame flickering like a promise. "Make a wish," she said. I closed my eyes. I didn't wish for peace. I knew better now. I wished for the strength to keep fighting, to keep standing, to never again let anyone tell me who I was or what I was worth. When I opened my eyes, they were both still there, my sister and the man who'd chosen to stay through every storm. I blew out the candle, the smoke curling up like a ghost leaving for good. .. The next morning, I woke before dawn, the city still half asleep. I stood at my window, my reflection blurred in the glass. Part warrior, part survivor, part something I hadn't yet named. There would always be another battle, another rumor, another rival waiting to test me. But for the first time, I wasn't afraid. Because this time, I knew exactly who I was. Vivienne Callahan. The girl they forgot. The woman they could never erase. And this empire? It was mine. For better or worse. End of part 11. Say next, when you're ready for part 12, the final chapter, where Vivienne's fight becomes her legacy. The rain came down in sheets the night before the annual shareholders' gala. A storm so fierce, it rattled the penthouse windows like the city itself was trying to test my resolve one final time. I stood barefoot in the living room, the lights off, the skyline fractured by bolts of lightning. Behind me, the apartment hummed with tension, garment bags unzipped, documents spread across the dining table, Margot pacing like a restless lioness. Jonathan watched me from the kitchen, his tie undone, sleeves rolled up. "You ready for this?" he asked, though he already knew the answer. "I've been ready since the day they forgot," I said. Margot paused her pacing, arms folded tight across her chest. "They'll come for you tonight. The board, the press, the ones who want you to stumble. They'll twist every word you say." "Then let them," I said. "I'm not here to soothe their egos. I'm here to show them what a Callahan really is. .. The gala was held in the grand ballroom of the Callahan Tower, 30 floors below my office, the marble pillars and crystal chandeliers, a glittering reminder of the empire we'd fought to claim. As I stepped out of the elevator, the hush that fell across the crowd was sharp enough to draw blood. Old guard shareholders, new investors, partners who'd flown in from cities I'd never visit. They all watched me with the same question in their eyes. Will she break? Margot flanked me, her gown a sheath of black silk that made her look like both a weapon and a promise. Jonathan slipped in behind us, a quiet sentinel whose presence was the only thing that kept my pulse from fracturing. The speeches droned on at first. Cautious praise for progress, careful nods to strong leadership. But everyone in that room was waiting for my voice. They always were. They always would be. When the last clink of glass died down, I stepped onto the small stage, my heels echoing off the marble like gunshots. I didn't need notes. I didn't need a script. I had the truth. "A year ago," I began, "you called me the forgotten daughter. The unstable heiress. The girl who tore apart her own family for a crown she didn't deserve." A ripple went through the room. The discomfort of people forced to confront the mirror I held up to them. You were right about some of it. I was forgotten. I was underestimated. But I didn't tear apart this family. I revealed what was already broken. I paused, letting the weight of my words settle over the sea of suits and diamonds. This company was never just about profit margins and press releases. It was built on blood, on sacrifice. My grandfather mortgaged our great-grandmother's wedding ring to buy his first factory. My father gambled with people's pensions to stay afloat. And me? I took all of it. Every lie, every betrayal, and I made it mine. Margot's eyes glistened as she watched me, the first tear she'd let fall in public since we'd begun this war. You want to know who leads you now? I asked, my voice soft but unyielding. It's the woman who knows exactly what it feels like to be forgotten, so she'll never forget you. It's the woman who learned the cost of betrayal, so she'll never betray you. It's the woman who stands here, not because she inherited this legacy, but because she earned it, claw by claw, lie by lie, truth by terrible truth. I raised my glass. To the future, not the one they promised you, but the one we're going to build together. The toast erupted, the room shattering into applause. It didn't matter if some clapped because they meant it, and some because they had to. They were all looking at me, and they would never look away again. .. Afterward, I slipped away to the balcony that overlooked the city. The wind cut through my hair, whipping it around my face. The rain had finally stopped, but the air still smelled of something new, like the earth itself was ready for what came next. Jonathan stepped out beside me, his tux undone at the collar, his fingers brushing mine. You did it, he said. No, I whispered. We did. Margot appeared on my other side, a glass of champagne in her hand. You know, she said, tipping her head back to look at the stars struggling through the clouds. If they could see us now, Mom and Dad, they'd say we ruined everything. They'd be half right, I said, a laugh caught in my throat. We ruined them, we saved this. Margot's hand found mine, her grip tight. Promise me something. Anything. When they come again, because they will, you won't forget who you are. You won't let them make you that girl waiting for a cake that never came. I looked at her, my sister, my rival, my only family now. I promise. .. Long after the ballroom emptied, after the last champagne flute was abandoned on marble ledges and the lights dimmed, I stood alone at the head of the boardroom table. The same seat my father once occupied, the same seat I'd torn from his hands. I ran my fingers across the polished wood, the scars hidden under layers of varnish. Like me, still here, still marked but whole. A quiet knock pulled me from my thoughts. Jonathan stood in the doorway, Margot beside him, their eyes soft but steady. Time to go home, Jonathan said. This is home, I said. All of it. Margot laughed, the sound raw but real. Then let's take it with us. We stepped into the elevator together, the doors closing with a whisper that felt like a vow. .. Years from now, they'll tell stories about us, the sisters who burned down their kingdom to build something better. They'll twist the truth, polish it for the headlines, try to sell it as caution or inspiration. But the real story will always be this. I was the girl they forgot, the woman they tried to break, the name they can never erase. This company, this family, this legacy, it's mine, and I will never be forgotten again. 2 more great stories are next. Don't miss them. Subscribe and turn on notifications.